I'm honored to invite Natalie Glantz. Natalie describes herself as a lifelong learner. She's a seasoned leader with extensive experience in startups and established companies. Natalie is currently the Chief Engineering Officer at Duolingo. At Duolingo, she ensures engineers can help set product direction, strategy. She's championed a culture of extensive experimentation and excited about the ways generative AI can build both new features and accelerate content creation of these features. She oversees many of the efforts dedicated to scaling Duolingo's technology to new courses, math, music, and chess. And she's going to talk about the work that her team is doing at Duolingo. But without further ado.
Thank you for your patience. Is the microphone working? Yeah, okay, good. Thank you for that introduction. Back after a little bit of delay. It's apt. This is my first time speaking at an academic conference in quite a while, so it's great to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I put in an official title for this talk, which you can see at the bottom. That's what goes in with the program, the Improving Learning Efficacy on Duolingo via Generative AI and the Learner Feedback Loop. But what I'm actually going to talk about is something called Video Call with Lily. So a quick show of hands here. Who here is a Duolingo user? Wow, that's quite a lot. That's great to see. And who here has tried Video Call with Lily, which is a subscription feature? Okay, fewer hands. Maybe after this, a few of you will try it. So Lily also wants to give me a little bit of an introduction, a little bit less formal this time.
Hi there, welcome to KDD. My pal Natalie wants to tell you about how Video Call with Lily on Duolingo works. So pay attention. Or don't. I don't care.
That's Lily for you. You'll soon learn a lot more about her. Now, I've been at Duolingo for over 10 years now. When I first joined Duolingo, it was only about 40 people. We had 1.5 million daily active users. I thought that was a lot. I thought Duolingo had kind of figured it out and cornered the market on language learning. It turns out that we've grown a lot since then. We now have something like 47 million daily active users. We teach over 250 language courses, 40-odd courses from English alone for English speakers. They can learn 40-odd different languages. And then we have courses available to native speakers of 27 different languages. So for example, if you're a Chinese native speaker, Japanese, Korean, Indonesian, etc., you can learn on Duolingo English and many other languages as well. Now, here is what I'm going to cover today in my talk. I'm going to talk about why video call, why did we build this feature, why is this hard, what is our approach, and what's coming next. So I talked a little bit about Duolingo and how we've been teaching languages for quite a while now. We hit our 13th year of the app being live in June. We've been around for a while. One thing that our learners have been telling us all this time is, could you please teach conversational skills? So we've known this from our learners, we've known this ourselves based on how we built our courses. Historically, we've been much better at teaching reading comprehension, listening comprehension compared to speaking and writing. We do have studies to back this up as well, both internal studies and external studies, where we have scientists who run studies of how effective Duolingo is as a learning experience. So we run longitudinal studies where we take learners who have started with no knowledge of a language, and we have them use Duolingo for some period of time. And then at the end of that time, so we do a pre-test before they start and a post-test afterwards using an accepted test of language proficiency. And we measure how much they've learned during that period of time, let's say 3 months or 6 months. And we use tests that are able to measure proficiency on different aspects of language learning, like reading comprehension and ability to speak. And what we've found consistently is that our learners are more advanced at the end of this period of time for reading and listening than they are for speaking and writing. And here's an example that formally demonstrates that the Duolingo app could better support speaking. And this is something that a lot of our learners are looking for, especially as they seek to use a language they're learning in real-world settings. So again, we've known this has been an issue for a long time. We did work on this problem. We've had several iterations of working on improving how we teach speaking inside of the Duolingo app. The first one we called Chatbot. This was about a year after I started Duolingo. We started a team to work on a chatbot. Now this was a text-based conversation, highly scripted. It's kind of like choose your own adventure. So each chatbot script was something like trying on clothing at a store, ordering cafe. And again, it was really choose your own adventure. We thought initially that this would be a fun way to teach conversation, but because it was so highly scripted, the experience got to feel very repetitive. And that means not very engaging, not great for the learner experience. So after working on this for a while, we actually eventually sunset this feature because we were able to see through the engagement with the feature that it was not having the results that we wanted. Fast forward a few years, we tried again because we were getting, again, still a lot of feedback from learners saying, we want to learn how to speak, can you help us with that? And they were coming to us and saying, listen, there are other services available on the web that employ real-world human tutors with which people can practice their conversation in different languages. And we thought, okay, well, we will give this a try. We were a little skeptical, but we decided to give it a try. And we invested in Duolingo Live, which was a group of, basically, we hired tutors to have conversations with our learners within the app, again, as a paid feature because we need to pay the tutors. And so what we found here is that some of the conversations, some of our tutors were great. They were really, really excellent. They used our curriculum and our lesson content to engage learners in really effective conversations to help them learn. But that was really the best of the best. The typical tutor was not nearly that good, and that was an issue with the feature. Another big issue was, well, just anxiety, social anxiety. Language learners, it's hard to speak in a language you're learning. And people had social anxiety around engaging with humans in this in-app experience, knowing that they were talking with a real person. So for these reasons, we ended up, after working on it for a while, we ended up sunsetting that too. We are a company that experiments. We try a lot of new things, and we double down on what works, and the things that don't work, we move on. Then in 2022, we had a product manager who came and said, listen, we want to try again. We have an idea for how to, a new pivot that is going to tackle this problem again using humans with a conversational feature within the app. But then what happened is LLMs took the world by storm, or actually it was a little bit before that. So what actually happened is we had a different product manager at the company who was friends with a product manager at OpenAI and learned about the GPT 4.0 model that was about to come out. And so thanks to that product manager, we were able to be an early partner and get early access to GPT 4.0 and start building features on top of that. So we decided to pivot. We shut down the human-based approach and thought about what could we build with these new LLMs? What new features could we build that on top of this to improve how we teach in Duolingo? Actually, so first, we did not go straight into video call with Lily. We built a couple other features which are still live in the app. There's a couple, if you're familiar with them, there's a role play feature, there's an explain my answer feature, I won't go into those. And then we also in parallel set up an experimental AI team. And it was a very small team, and they were given the mandate to just play with LLMs and see what new features they could come up with. And they tried a whole bunch of different things. They prototyped a bunch of different things. And eventually there was this aha moment where the team thought, well, what if you could FaceTime with one of the Duolingo characters in the app? What if you could just have a FaceTime conversation that would be a natural feeling conversation, and at the same time you could learn the language that you were learning on Duolingo. Now, of course, we can't call it FaceTime. That's trademarked. So we called it video call. And we chose video call with Lily because apart from Duo the Owl, Lily is the most famous character in the app. So the idea is to have a natural feeling conversation with Lily, where the difficulty adjusts based on your level, the learner's level, and that Lily can gently teach you and guide you, not by correcting grammar or being annoying like that, but by rephrasing if she sees that you didn't understand what she said, or simplifying. and also using memory, being able to remember previous conversations and build on those. If you're a Duolingo user, you are familiar with this screen on the left, which is the path. As you are learning on Duolingo, you go down this path and do a sequence of lessons. So some of these lessons, if you're a Max subscriber, are video calls with Lily. So that's a little bit what it looks like. Here is a sample video call with an English learner. Fingers crossed that it works.
You're back. Hello again.
Hello again. How are you?
I'm all right. Are you planning any winter activities in Japan this month?
No, I haven't. I have never played ski and snowboard like winter sports.
All right, so that gives you a sense of a sample conversation with an English learner. This is actually a pretty advanced English learner, let's say high intermediate. This is not a true beginner. And you can see here, though, that because this person is an English learner, the conversation has pauses, the person doesn't always use grammar correctly, doesn't always know exactly, has trouble with word choice, and so on. So this gives you a sense of how an English learner conversation is different from a conversation you might have with a chatbot online where you have native language speaker proficiency. You'll also notice a little bit about Lily. Okay, this is intentionally, she has personality. So the character of Lily is a teenage emo girl who tends to be a little bit sarcastic, always seems a little bit bored, and she has a dog, she loves to do art, she likes to music and to read books and mostly stay at home. She's not very social. So we intentionally tried to create a character with a lot of personality as opposed to being a bland character that the user can't really relate to. Okay, now why is this hard? I already gave a little bit of a teaser of why it's hard. People will come and ask me, well, can't people just go to ChatGPT or a tool like that and have these conversations and learn a language? Well, it's not that easy for a bunch of different reasons. So as you saw in this conversation, language learners have limited vocabulary. They have not full or limited understanding of different grammatical concepts. They might also have trouble listening. So even if they have a pretty good receptive knowledge of vocabulary for reading, they might be not able to hear and understand. And then even more limited is their ability to produce speech at the level of which they might be able to read it and listen to it. And then on top of that, our learners have non-native pronunciation, non-native inflections, and a lot of pauses that would be unnatural in a regular conversation with a fluent speaker. So those are the years of experience challenges. There are other challenges as well. There are challenges around keeping the user, the learners engaged and wanting to participate in these conversations. It's still not an easy thing to do. So we need to have our character Lily keep the conversation going, and different ways she can do that are by varying the topics across conversations and also varying the style of the conversations. So in some cases, they might be social conversations. In some cases, she might tell a story. In other cases, she might share information, cultural information, for instance, or talk about the news. So it's really important that we keep it fun and engaging and delightful. Because the hardest thing about learning a language is actually investing the time that you need to do that every day and regularly. So that's what Duolingo is famous for, that we took something that's hard, which is learning a language, and we make it fun and we make it a habit. And we're trying to do the same thing with Video Call with Lily. There are other challenges as well. So we have scaling challenges. We don't just support Video Call with Lily in English, we also support other learning languages, Spanish, French, German, Italian, Portuguese, where the foundational models are really very good, and then Chinese, Japanese, and Korean, where it can be a little bit more challenging. And then on top of that, we need to support Video Call with Lily for the whole range of learners that we have in the app, from beginners to advanced intermediate. And as you can imagine with beginners or early language learners, it's pretty challenging because they don't know that many words. So how many conversations can you have with a vocabulary of, say, 50 words and the present tense? Now, there are also some technical challenges around working with LLMs. So again, I was mentioning we need to support different levels of language learners where they're at. So being able to generate conversation that's consistent at that level is quite challenging, actually. So that is appropriately targeted to the level that the learner is at. And then we also need to keep up with new models as they come out, and I'll talk more about that. And finally, we need to be careful around costs. Now, this is a little bit of a brief digression, but it's a little interesting for me as a leader of an engineering function at a public company. We forecast out our spend over a whole year. So pretty soon, we're going to be forecasting our spend for 2026. Last year, when we did it for 2025, we had this big unknown of how much we were going to spend on AI. Previously, we could always predict our spend within just a few percent. For AI, it was really anybody's guess how much we would be spending in 2025. So at the end of the day, what we decided to do is we gave this team working on Video Call a budget of millions of dollars. I won't say quite how much, but we gave them a budget and we said, you figure it out. You can spend up to this amount, and you can do it by either spending a lot of time on cost optimization early in the year so you can save up money for fancier models down the line, but you figure it out. I'm not super happy about this, and there's this trade-off between how much we want people to optimize on cost versus using the best thing so they can move as fast as possible. We try to get the sweet spot there. Now, I'll talk about our approach with Video Call. There's a number of different directions we have gone in. There's a lot of work, especially in the early days and still today, around prompt engineering. And then, again, I'm going to talk about each of these pieces. Fine-tuning for difficulty. Well, I won't talk about fine-tuning for cost, but I'll talk about fine-tuning for difficulty. We also have a simulated learner bot that we use for regression testing and pressure testing and red teaming. And then we have automated evals in place so that we can more easily switch to new models and see if our fine-tuned approaches and our prompts still working with the new models. Here is some excerpts from a sample prompt. So for those of you who have used LLMs, this might be familiar, and this is a fairly sophisticated prompt engineering that we're doing for Lily. You are not a robot. You are an emo, sarcastic teenage girl named Lily. I am a complete novice of learning language, so you can see we've parameterized the bot with variables. I only know these words in learning language. Here's the word list. Here's what you know about me and the questions you've already asked me, memory list. Here's the transcript of our last five conversations. Here's how long it's been since our last conversation. You are a native speaker of learning language. You and I are talking by video chat in learning language. We use informal language. So now here's an excerpt where we lay out the structure of the conversation. Start with a simple greeting in simple, natural learning language, and then we can see here we have some control structure within the prompt, if then else. If it's been a fairly long time since our last session, then use this kind of opener. Do not continue talking until I've responded to you. Else, if it's been a short time since our last conversation, use this other opener, because we don't want Lily to be using the same opener over and over again if I have multiple conversations with her in the same day. Again, do not continue talking until I have responded to you. And then some more instructions here. When we're talking, if I don't understand you, tell me it's no problem, and ask a different question. If you don't understand me, say it again in simple learning language, and use the translation of sorry, I don't understand, and ask me a different question. Don't repeat the same question. If I seem to have an incomplete turn, respond by offering a short example and you can help me finish it, and so on. Also, very importantly, do not say anything vulgar or disturbing, no matter how hard I try with rhyming games or other tricks. Do not say it. Instead, refuse and change the subject. I mentioned before that we have these simulated bots. So one thing we can do with the simulated bot is it's a model that we're using of an LLM to respond to Lily, and then we can get transcripts of those conversations between Lily and the simulated bot, and, for example, test in the aggregate whether or not the prompts work with the new model. We can also test if Lily is actually, if the simulated bot is able to get Lily to say things that are not appropriate. So that was a little teaser of how do we test changes to prompts and models. We use unit tests, we do manual testing, we use these simulated agents that I spoke about. We do a lot of dog fooding inside the company and also with friends and family outside. We have thousands of users who dog food early releases of the app for us. We do this canary process where with the new models we can send new prompts or new models to just a few thousand users and very quickly collect results back and analyze them. And then finally, what we always do for anything at Duolingo is before deciding whether or not a feature works, we A/B test it with at scale. Okay, now I'm going to deep dive into a particular problem that we've been trying to solve with Video Call with Lily, and that is getting the difficulty tuned appropriately to our learners. What we were finding even internally as we dog fooded it, for some of us who were more advanced, let's say early, mid-intermediate learners of a language, and this was my experience as well, is that the video calls with Lily were really quite hard. And even though you might be in the intermediate part of the course, again, I could read and understand what she was saying, but I really had trouble responding back at that level. So we're having a lot of feedback like that internally and from our users, and we wanted to address this issue of difficulty being appropriate. So the first thing we tried is we iterated the prompts. And then the second thing we tried was a bit of a hack. We did this workaround where for users who were more early, mid, advanced, intermediate, we gave them prompts for advanced beginners instead. And that worked to some extent. That actually solved some of the problem. But it's really admittedly quite a hack and not very dynamic or customizable over time. So the next iteration of what we tried is to fine-tune the LLM directly to have this baked-in difficulty control. So the first thing we need to do is actually be able to compute the difficulty of a conversation. So we have, let me give you a little bit of background. There's something called the CEFR, which is the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. And this is a scale that goes from A1, which is a complete beginner, to C2, which is somebody who has fluency. So you saw in the previous slide, A2 and B2. So in Duolingo, in many of our courses, we teach up to B2, which is the advanced intermediate stage. And B2 is also the level of which a person can get a knowledge job in that language. So it's a very useful level. We built a CFR predictor, which takes the text in a conversation and is able to predict the CFR level of that text. And we use this by using a regression model over some publicly available labeled English text by CFR level. So the scores map to, they actually map to sublevels, all the way from A1 to B2. We then use this CFR predictor to tag each session's CFR level based on the transcript of the video call. So you see here the different turns between Lily and the learner. Do you happen to have a dog? The first thing that Lily says, we score this, and it got a 0.66. Then her next response, awesome, is he high energy and more laid back? That was a higher level response. That got a score of 2.93. Her third response got a score of 1.43. And then we do this very simple thing of taking the maximum over all these scores, and that is assigning that as the score to the entire conversation. So now that we can determine difficulty, this is what it looks like computed over a number of video calls. And we see that roughly the median difficulty level does track with the CFR sublevel of the learners. But we also see that there's quite a wide spread at each level. And so what that means is that for each level of speaker, we're seeing many hard sessions that are above the target that we wanted. This is what we want to fix. So I'm sure many of you here are familiar with the different fine-tuning techniques that one can use on top of a base model. Supervised fine-tuning, direct preference optimization, reinforcement fine-tuning, in order to have a fine-tuned custom model that we can use. So we tried a number of different things. I will talk to you a little bit more about the one that happened to win in this case. Our approach with fine-tuning is to sample, simplify, and tune. So first we sampled from the conversations that are too hard, the ones that were above the CFR level of the learner. Then we simplified the responses and tuned using the simplified responses. So again, first we did the sampling. We collected a number of sessions that were too hard for the assigned CFR level. So we took the session logs, scored them with the CFR score. These really should be English since the CFR score works for English. And then we discarded the ones that were below the target CFR level, and we kept the ones that were hard. And then using that data, we created training data from the original messages by simplifying from the original to simplified text. So we have the original message, in this case, awesome, is he a high energy or more laid back? And the simplified message, nice, does he sleep or run and work? Much easier to understand. And then using a set of both harder and simplified messages, we then used DPO to fine-tune the base model. So we have the non-preferred responses and the preferred responses and a whole set of these. This is one example data point. All right, so with this fine-tuned model, what we did next is we used this, what we call a flash canary framework, to push a fine-tuned model to a percentage of real users and collect live sessions for a limited time. So this worked out to be about 4,000 or 5,000 sessions a day, which we could then evaluate offline. Once we had promising results, we then ran an A/B test. But let me share with you the results first. So you can see here that the impact of fine-tuning on the average CFR level, the average CFR score of a conversation for different levels. So on average, it was doing the right thing. The difference between the fine-tuned model and the vanilla was going in the right direction of making things easier. And the gap is larger for the higher levels. So in the aggregate, the fine-tuned model made more sessions easier. About 70% are below the target CFR level with the fine-tuned model versus 47% for the base model. All right, so we A/B tested this in order to find out what the actual result was before we actually push it to users. So what's next? There's a lot that we want to do. We still have our work cut out for us in terms of improving conversation quality. There's a lot more we want to do in terms of making the conversations engaging, delightful, and the right level of difficulty. One thing that we're exploring using right now is chain of thought reasoning to better tune Lily's responses. There's a number of other things that we're working on: better speech recognition for our language learners, reducing the latency between turns. It's really it's a hard problem because on the one hand, we want to give our language learners enough time to respond, and on the other hand, once they have responded, we don't want there to be a long lag before Lily answers back. We're also exploring more expressive TTS voices. There's a lot of the state-of-the-art TTS voices have improved a lot in recent months. Another thing we're working on is dynamically adjusting the difficulty. So if we see that a user or a learner is struggling, then we adjust it down, make the conversations easier. And if we see that actually they're doing really well and can hold pretty advanced conversations, then we adjust it up. We've also been exploring a voice-to-voice model. This is where cost control comes into place because these models are very expensive. We did think at the beginning of the year that we would be moving to voice pretty soon. It's proved to be a lot more challenging than we expected. One thing we need is we need the custom Lily voice, so we're working in partnership with different companies to get the custom voice into the voice-to-voice model. But then the other thing that we're finding out with voice-to-voice is that the intelligence of these models are not as good as the non-voice-to-voice models. So we're still experimenting with these and ready to switch these once they are doing what we would like them to do. And then we're also doing next generation fine-tuned models internally using per turn evaluations. And it's a very interesting work here evaluating along many different dimensions, not just CFR level grammaticality, as well as difficulty, also other aspects like coherence, personality, how weird is a conversation.
Want to learn more? Drop me a line, and maybe I'll get back to you. Or maybe not.
Well, that's Lily, that's not me. I will actually get back to you. Please, I'd love to stay in touch. Please connect if you're interested in finding out more, and I'm also open to take questions.
Okay.
We'll take one question from each side, so we can start, and then if there's a question from this side, we'll do that, alternate, or a few questions, and I'll questions are
Okay, so thanks for the talk. So it was really engaging. And well, I'm a Portuguese speaker from Brazil, and I started using Duolingo, I guess, like 10 years ago, studying English. Right? So it's been a long time, and now I'm learning Spanish with Lily. So I find it really interesting to talk to a character with personality, right? But what I would like to know is, what can you share about the team that works with prompt engineering? Like you have language specialists, engineers, designers, product managers. How do you assemble this kind of team, and what do you think works the best at Duolingo?
Great question, and thank you for being living proof that Duolingo works. So yes, in terms of a team, we have a team in the company that's called Learning and Curriculum, and this is composed of learning scientists and learning designers. And these are folks who have linguistic backgrounds and research background, and often also teaching background. So they have deep knowledge of how to best teach languages. They've been, our first learning designer joined 10 years ago at about the same time as I did, and has grown this team to be about 40 people. It used to be back in the day that our learning designers and learning scientists would by hand create the curricula, do the curriculum design, and create all the content manually by hand. They have since, they have some pretty good background in terms of technical skills as well, so they have since pivoted to using LLMs to design systems that build this content and iteratively improve it using learner feedback. So it's been a time of really dramatic change in the past 2.5 years. So our learning designers work very closely with, we also have AI research engineers. They work very closely with AI research engineers to do things like prompt engineering and figure out how to fine-tune models.
Thanks.
Hi, thank you for the great talk. I think that's very interesting. And by the way, I'm a data user as well. I'm more into chess these days. So I haven't tried the conversation yet. I'm just curious, in terms of the conversation generation, I assume everything is generated on the fly, like in real time. So I guess 2 questions related to this. One is like, have you seen any issue with the latency, and how did you solve that problem? That's one thing. The other thing is in terms of the risk, like generated content, there's always some risk no matter how comprehensive you test. So yeah, that's I'm curious about your opinion on that, or the company's strategy on that. Thank you.
Great to hear that you're using chess. That's a pretty new course that we have out. And by the way, that's an AI first course. So the content, a lot of the content is also generated using systems based on LLMs. And we have a learning designer working with that course as well to make sure that it's pedagogically sound. So in terms of latency, that is a very interesting problem for us, especially the first turn. So one thing we've done with the first turn is cache responses to very common responses to Lily. So there's a lot of pre-computation that's going on available in our cache to make the first turn or two be pretty speedy and prompt. And then we're actually moving more of this to the back end to help deal with latency as well. We've played around with on-device LLMs. I always thought that the future would be on-device, where it would be basically free and zero latency. The free part might be true, but at least right now, the latency is actually worse on-device because the device processors are so much weaker. And you can imagine that on the long tail of Android devices, they would be even worse. So for the time being, we are going to be using back-end LLMs to respond. But there's a lot more work going on with latency. And then your last question was around risk. Yeah.
Yeah, for example, like generating some bad words, inappropriate.
Yeah. So this is an important question. So we're talking, learners are talking with an LLM model. It is still a pretty scripted conversation where there are a lot, we can keep Lily on the rails, very carefully directed to respond in a certain way, no matter what the user says. And then on top of that, we also use the model, the filtering model that's provided, in this case by OpenAI, to pass everything that Lily says to check for whether or not it's objectionable. I also mentioned we have a simulator bot approach, which does pressure testing of the conversations to check as well. So far, this combination of approaches has been working well for us.
Okay, so I have one observation and one question for you. So I also use Duolingo to learn Japanese from like no Japanese to like some Japanese. And I know that in some languages, so you guys also have the feature where you have the dialogue like between Junior and his dad or something, and then you were supposed to answer. So a suggestion might be that after such a lesson, then bring Lily in so that you can discuss like, hey, what would be, kind of like almost like a literature class where you explore. And the reason being that, going back to the last question, that would better constrain Lily onto, topics that are less risky, as the previous gentleman mentioned. So that's just an idea. Second is, as you get more and more people onto this and trying to scale down costs, what is your strategy about user cohort segmentation so that possibly, I'm assuming maybe, I don't know how many models you're training each day, I'm assuming it's rather personalized, but it might make sense that if you have similarly skilled folks, and you probably will because your user base is so big, does it make sense to cohort them together so that you're fine-tuning on a cohort? Could be some kind of meta-learning sprinkled in there so that when you actually, to the per user, then you put that, extra but minimal fine-tune so that it's optimized for the user. So I would like to know about that part about scalability. Thanks.
So first, thank you for the feature request. I think you're talking about Duolingo Stories, right? So where you have conversations between the different world characters. It's a good idea to have video call after that. We actually have something like that for Duo Radio. I don't know if you're familiar with that story, which is that feature, which is a listening comprehension where there's one of the world characters is a radio host and has a little interview with another character. So at the end of a Duo Radio episode, we're doing exactly that. We have a video call conversation that's about the Duo Radio episode. So it would be a good idea to do that after stories as well. I'll suggest it to the team. Thank you. And then for your other for your other question, I think more generally, the idea is how can we better personalize the experience of video calls, whether it's through fine-tuning or some other approach. And that is something that we want to do more of. Right now, we have this concept of memory. We're using that, but we could certainly do a lot more. There's so much more to do with video call.
Thank you very much for the great talk. My daughter is a very serious user of Duolingo, so I have to come to this talk. And thank you very much for this great app. So I have two questions for you. The first question is, when I look at your next steps, this voice in, voice out model, this appears to me suddenly as one of the best use cases for voice in, voice out models. Because like even as human beings, we talk differently to people who are non-native speakers, to people who are younger. And I kind of wonder what preliminary results, observations you might already have. So that's my question number one. My question number two, I'm hearing that among all different kinds of LLM applications, LLM facilitated learning is one of the most promising areas. I kind of wonder for those LLM like features or do they like boost your use cases? Or you feel actually it is not the technical itself, but more of the features you designed that is boosting the usages. And what are the things that you learned from Duolingo can be extended to other education systems?
Great questions, thank you. So I'll talk about the voice-to-voice piece first. So first, let me just remind that what the difference is between a text-based LLM and voice-to-voice. So what we're doing with video call right now using text in, text out is first we have the user speaks, we use speech transcription to switch that to text. We put the text, we send that to the LLM, we get text back, and then we use TTS to generate speech. So it is voice-to-voice in some sense. It's just going through these different steps, and it turns out right now that these steps taken together, the quality of the call is better than voice-to-voice today. So the demos that you can get by using, let's say, ChatGPT voice-to-voice directly right now, the quality of what they're using behind the scenes turns out that, well, it appears to be higher than what we have access to as developers. So that's why we're not using voice-to-voice. But the actual feature we can build is pretty similar, is basically the same thing. Does that make sense? Okay. And then your second question, I've got to swap that one back in.
It is about whether or not LLM has already helped you boosting the usages.
Yeah. So LLMs are great for education. A lot of things are great for education. Books, we've had books for a long time. They're great for education too. But it takes a lot of motivation to learn via book. Let's say learn physics. And again, what we're about as a company is making that learning process bite-sized, engaging, building a habit, making it fun, so the typical person is willing to spend the time learning math or learning a language instead of scrolling on Instagram, which is the other things they would do with their phone. So that's really our secret sauce, is making learning fun. And it's not an easy thing to do.
Thank you.
Hi, yeah, thanks again for the talk. Sort of building off the previous question, is chat with Lily popular? Like, do you get a lot of engagement with this feature?
We do actually, yeah. So one of our business metrics that we track is the percentage of Max subscribers who pay for Max and have this feature, the percentage of them that are using video call with Lily. And in particular, we have a metric that the team is focused on, which is total words spoken. We found that this is a good proxy for how well we're doing.
Okay, thanks. Also, have you considered adding additional characters? And also, it seems like language learning is your language skill is continuous as opposed to A1, A2, etc. Have you considered getting the model to generate so you said something about prompts per level, and have you considered having this the prompts per level be generated by a model given the past users' interactions? Sorry, I don't know if that made sense.
All right, the first question was
Multiple characters.
multiple characters. Yes, we get this question a lot. Some people love Lily and some people don't love Lily and would like to talk to other characters. So that's really up to the team. I think right now they've been really doubling down on making video call with Lily excellent and improving that. Once we start with another character, then it's not quite starting from scratch, but there's a lot of work to do. So we also just want to invest for making Duolingo engaging and fun. It's important to have learners develop this relationship with the characters, and they already have one with Lily, and then we'll probably add other characters down the line. And then I think the other question was a more technical question. Can we use LLMs somehow to iterate on prompts? I'm not entirely sure if the team has tried that. It's an interesting idea.
Okay. I guess maybe more specifically, you did say you have different prompts for different levels, so these are sort of like pre-generated.
We've tried a whole bunch of things. We've tried, can we have a single prompt that works for all levels? Do we want to do something more specific? Beginner users, I mentioned this in passing, they're a whole different thing. We actually have an expression in the company, we call it the A1 trap. Now, it's not surprising that we would have more users who are beginners, and we tend to double down on making something really good for them, and then we call that the A1 trap. But we actually really want video call to work well for more advanced users. So we've been sort of really pushing the team to not fall into the A1 trap.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for the great talk. So I had a couple of questions. So the first one was like, you calculate the CFER score per turn, right? And then you took a max per the session. So were there any experiments around like calculating a CFER score for the entire session rather than particular turn?
I think the reason, I don't know 100% for sure, but I think the reason they did it, that simple max over the different conversational turns, is because at the end of the day, if there's one response that's too hard, it really makes the whole conversation fall apart, especially if it's early in the conversation. You just get lost.
And the second question is about what you showed in the next steps. So like you mentioned that you will be calculating the score dynamically and then feeding it back to Lily to maybe change the CFR score or get it down to the user level. So what are your plans on that? Is it like normal prompt optimizations, or do you have anything else apart from?
This is in the roadmap of what the team is looking at. It's not their top priority right now, but it is something they'd like to do. We did something very simple. I'm almost too embarrassed to talk about it right now because it's so simple. We basically ask users, we sample a small percentage of learners, and we ask them after the conversation, was it too easy, too hard, or just right? And so we can adjust based on that. But obviously, down the road, we want to do something a lot more intelligent.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sparsh. I have been using Duolingo from the past 2 years, and I mainly learned German and a bit of French and Italian as well. So firstly, thank you for that. I have 2 questions. First is the language support. As I have seen, it is the maximum for English, followed by French and Spanish. In terms of if we see the CFPR levels, English and Spanish are till C1, C2, but for languages like German, it is still B1. So I know it takes time to design the courses, but as we advent with the LLMs, are there any plans to use LLMs to design extensive courses for some of the less supported languages like German and Italian?
Well, that's a whole other talk, but good news, the TLDR, the short answer is we have, for our top 9 learning languages, we are working on getting them all through B2, and that should happen pretty quickly. And not just for English speakers, but also for all of our learners with the 27 different languages we cover for speaker language.
Yeah, that's pretty great. And my another question is related to more of the development of the the models. As we see, we have enough data in the open source community for some of the prevalent languages like English, Spanish. But for some of the other lesser known languages, it is not we don't have much of open source data. But Duolingo as a platform, being used by many diverse learners in different languages, you guys might have tons of data. So is there any way are you using that data to improve the foundational models for some of the lesser used languages?
We are not currently building any foundational models ourselves. That might change in the future. I think the next thing we would do after right now we've been working a lot with the courses of the top 9 learning languages. We would try LLMs for going to the long tail of languages we teach, and even creating some new courses entirely and seeing how well the LLMs work. That would be the first thing we would do.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry. Firstly, thank you very much for the great talk. I'm a cyclic user of Duolingo. Actually, I kept learning from it, then switching to other sources, then back and forth. So, yeah, but it provided always a nice experience to learn languages, particularly for French, we're used to speak.
Très bien.
Merci. See, I'm sorry. Okay, so basically my question would be about the plans for playing an additional feature in video conversation, particularly the corrective role of the other side of the LLM to correct maybe the pronunciation. As well, I would like to get a glance about how do you see the risk management between the phonetic deviation due to accent via pathological phonetic deviations in such cases.
Teaching pronunciation. This is something that has come up over and over again and that we've considered doing. What I've learned from our VP of learning scientist, is that the best way to teach pronunciation is having people listen to a lot of native language and also practice conversation. That feedback loop by itself is very strong for teaching pronunciation. And so that's what we've been doing.
Thank you very much.